I'm Adam from Army Painter, and today we're going to be painting Minsc Boo from the Dungeons & Dragons universe using Nolzur's Marvelous Pigments Adventurer set. Now the magic in miniature painting is that it can be as simple or as challenging as you'd like it to be. There's a plethora of techniques out there that you could try to master, but by learning a few simple techniques you can get some really great results. So let's try some out today. To start, you must prime your model. All miniatures, whether they are plastic, resin, or metal, require a primer for your acrylic war paints to adhere to. In the D&D Adventurer set, you'll find War Paint's Primer Gray. This neutral gray color is an impeccable canvas for all colors to be painted on top of. We recommend priming your model with a D&D dry brush or another big brush like our monster brush. You only need a very thin coat of primer on the miniature, that way you don't ruin or hide all of the intricate details. To thin your gray primer, you can mix in a few drops of water to help the flow of the primer, and once you've given this model a full coat, leave it to dry for 5 minutes, enough time to make a cup of coffee or plan out a color scheme. Now if you're painting more than a few miniatures at a time, we strongly recommend using color primer sprays to prime your miniatures. The sprays offer a smoother, more even finish in a matter of seconds. Add to that a choice of 24 colors that are 100% matched to our line of war paints. This can be a huge time saver at the paint desk and get you more time for gaming. With the primer dry, it's time to start adding some paints to Minsc. For this you'll need the war paints from the Adventurer set, a D&D starter brush, some clean water, paper towel, and a mixing palette. Remember, the Army Painter war paints are all water-based, non-toxic, and extremely user-friendly. They paint on smooth and dry in minutes. Let's get right to it. We're going to paint Minsc's skin using Flumph Pink. You'll want to get good even coverage here, so once your first coat is dry, I recommend giving it a second thin coat. Since we're just focusing on the skin in this step, don't worry too much if you get Flumph Pink on other parts of the model. We'll paint over them with a different color later. Now that we've painted all of the skin, it's time to move over to the metal parts of the model, like the armor and sword. To do that, we're going to use Mithril Silver, a bright and smooth metallic paint. All metallic war paints come with a black lid, making it easy to identify them. Now that we've coated the legs, sword, and armor, we're also going to paint the belt buckle and his earring. We're still using the starter brush from the Adventurer set, but a thinner brush might make this step a little bit easier for you. For instance, the Precise Detail brush from the D&D brush set. We've painted all of the skin and armor, now it's time to move on to the cloak, and for this we're going to use Dragonfire Red. To achieve a strong and vibrant red, we recommend applying 2 thin coats. Take care not to get paint on any of the other areas of the miniature that you've previously base coated, trying to be as neat as you can, but if you've painted a bit outside of the lines, no worries. Once the paint is dried, you can always go back and paint over the mistakes with your previous color at this stage. Once you've applied your 2 coats, be sure to give it a look over to make sure you have smooth, even coverage. If need be, give it one more light coat. And now, Minsc is really starting to come to life. For the next step, we're going to paint Minsc's trousers using Abyssal Black, taking very good care not to get any of the black paint on the robe or the armor. And once the black is complete, we can move on to all of the leather parts of the model. For this, we're using Bugbear Brown. The boots are pretty straightforward, but for his belts, try to be as careful as possible and only load a little paint onto the bristles at a time. But when you have so little paint on the brush, the paint does tend to dry out very quickly, so you might want to thin the paint down with a bit of water to improve the flow of the brush. With most of Minsc already blocked in, it's time to move over to our favorite bodyguard ranger's little buddy. Boo says paint hard, so I paint hard. We'll start by painting all of the little critter with Lawful White. You'll find the D&D starter brush is small enough for most detail work and large enough for basing. It's a good all-around brush. In order to achieve Boo's yellowy brown fur, we're going to have to mix 3 parts angelic yellow to 1 part bugbear brown. Now we already have a little brown left over, so we'll mix the 2 right here on the palette. Alternatively, you could also use Utyug Brown from the D&D Monster Paint set. That's starting to look about right. Now we're just going to apply this to the top half of Boo, leaving some white on his legs and belly. With Boo all finished, it's time to move on to paint Minsc's trademark tattoo. This will require a bit of freehand work and another mixture of paints. This time, 1 part Dragonfire Red, 1 part Kraken Blue, and 1 part Lawful White. Now there are several interpretations of Minsc's tattoo, and you can find inspiration with a quick web search. All of the tattoos have one common theme. It's a purple ring of sorts that covers his front eye. This requires a steady hand, but don't worry, if you happen to go a bit overboard, you can always go back in and tidy it up with more pink. With the tattoo done, we finished the base coat stage. All that's left is to paint the edge of the base with Abyssal Black, and your Minsc Boo miniature is done. Now, it is perfectly alright to stop at this stage and play out your first encounters, but let us explore some simple techniques that will take your painting skills and your miniatures to the next level. And we're going to start this adventure by using the washing technique. Washes are essentially thinned down specialist paints designed to create depth and contrast for your model by flowing over the model and into its recesses. In the D&D Monsters paint set, we have 3 different washes, and we will use all 3 on Minsc Boo today. The first wash we'll use is Shadow Wash, a deep black wash. This was applied all over the armor and metallic areas to add depth and realism to the model. And just like that, you can instantly see the contrast of the model shift. It's good to remember that because washes are so thin, they take slightly longer to dry than normal acrylic paints. So give the model a minute or two before moving on to our next wash. This time we'll be using Flesh Wash. We'll apply Flesh Wash all over Minsc's skin and Boo's fur. This color is perfect for shading pale skin tones and especially hamster fur. The rest of the miniature was shaded with Brown Wash. It's a very versatile type of wash that can work on many colors. We shaded the red cloak, the brown leather, and the stone base with it. And as you can see, the washes have really made a difference to Minsc Boo. However, it has also darkened the miniature and left us with a dirty and worn feel, unsuitable for our brave barbarian hero. In the next stages, we will build up the bright colors again with highlights on the raised surfaces. We're going to go back to the colors we originally used when we base coated the model to redefine the strong and vibrant colors. This highlighting technique is best visualized on the red cloak. The brown wash has settled nicely into the folds of the cloak, creating a dark brown shade. We painted the raised folds with Dragonfire Red, taking care only to paint them on the very raised surfaces. The next color to highlight was Mithril Silver, again taking care not to get the silver onto other parts of the model. We used the dry brushing technique. You start by wiping almost all of the paint off of the brush onto a paper towel, leaving just a small amount of paint still in the bristles. Now repeatedly and gently draw the brush across the surface of the miniature with what little paint is left on the brush, and it will settle on top of the raised areas only. This technique works particularly well on armor and fur. When we're all done with the dry brush, we add a very fine highlight on the very tip of the scales on Minsc's armor and the top of the sword blade. Using Fluff Pink on only the raised surfaces, we highlighted the skin, for instance on the nose, the cheekbones, the top of the ears, and the bald top of Minsc's head. Likewise, try only to paint the highlight color on the top of the fingers, not in between where you like the flesh wash to stay. Then we highlighted the tattoo using the purple mix that we used in the base coat stage. Finally, we dry brushed the pavement stones on the base with a 50-50 mix of Lawful White and Abyssal Black. You could use your standard brush, but we used the D&D dry brush from the D&D brush set. When that was done, we touched up the edge of the base with a fresh coat of black. With the highlighting stage complete, Minsc Boo are ready to go monster bashing in the deep, underdark crypts. But if you feel your warriors just need a bit more attention, we recommend a second highlight. This technique is similar to the previous highlighting stage, but we'll be using a brighter color and focusing only on the very highest raised areas on the miniature. This step does require a bit of patience and a fine brush. To get the brighter paints, you can simply mix in a drop of Lawful White to the base color, or you can pick a brighter color from the 36 additional war paints in the D&D monster set, or from the entire war paints range of 124 colors. The colors we use for the final highlight are Fair Skin for the leather, Rust Monster for the cloak, Silver Dragon for all of the metal bits, Beholder Purple for Minsc's tattoo, Ethereal Blue on the trousers, Rosy Skin on the flesh, and Orc Skin on the base. Once the miniature was dry, we gave Minsc Boo a thin coat of Aegis Suit Satin Varnish Spray to protect the model. Then we glued on some Battlefield's Highlands and Woodlands tufts to the base with a drop of super glue. Just like that, Minsc Boo are ready for their next adventure. Remember that you can find all the paints used in today's video at www.thearmypainter.com or at your friendly local gaming store. Be sure to share your painting adventures with us on Facebook at The Army Painter.